In this lesson, you will learn about the LangChain prompt template class. I'll walk you through the functions available in this class to create the prompts, and we will see the prompt template class in action. The demo code that I'm using in this lesson is available in the course repository under the folder LangChain. You can also run this code in Google Colab. Check out the Open in Colab button in the page Prompt Templates under the section LangChain in the course guide. LangChain offers multiple prompt template classes. These classes makes it easier to work with prompts. The prompt template class is for building generic prompts for a number of tasks. Few short prompt template is for building a few short prompt, and chat prompt template makes it easier to build chatbot type interfaces. My focus in this lesson is on the prompt template class. I'll be covering the other two classes in later lessons. With the prompt template class, you can define templates with placeholders that represent the input variables. Using the format method, you can create the actual prompt. In the format method, you need to pass the input variables as parameters. Let's check this out in action. Make sure that you have installed the LangChain package. I've already done so. So now we are ready to code. From langchain.prompts import prompt template. Let's say we are going to carry out a Q&A task with an LLM. So we'll provide an instruction. I'll call it instruction template. And in this template, we will ask the LLM to behave like a helpful subject teacher. This subject can be anything: math, science, geography, etc. And let's say for grade, and we provide the placeholder for grade class. Now this is the template that we're going to use for creating the prompt template. So let's create a variable prompt template equal to prompt template. We need to provide two things here. First one is the template, which is the instruction template, and we need to provide the list of input variables. Input variables equal to the list. First one is subject and the second variable is grade. Let's run this and we are good. To generate the prompt, we will use the format method. Here we need to provide the values for the variables. So let's say subject equal to science and grade equal to 6. Let's set up a variable and let's print out the prompt. So here, as you can see, the format method replaced the placeholder with the values that we passed. Now, one thing I'll show you here is that in order to use the format method, you need to pass values for all of the input variables. So for example, if I just try to do this here, whereas I'm not passing the value for the second input variable, this will fail. And the reason is that format function requires values for all input variables to be passed. Sometimes you may not have the value for all the variables available to you. So that's where you use partial. Let's talk about that. Unlike the format method, the partial method does not require values for all the input variables. A call to the partial method leads to the creation of a prompt template. Let's check this out. For this example, let's say we need to send this prompt to the LLM multiple times for the same subject, for example, science, but for different grade levels. In this case, the partial function can be helpful. So let's create a partial template by saying partial underscore prompt equal to, we will use the existing template and call the partial function on it. We'll pass the value for just a subject, and this will create a template. Now, in order to use the partial prompt template, we can just say prompt equal to partial prompt, which is a template, and then use the format function on it. Here we'll pass the value for all the remaining input variables, and for this one it's grade. Let's print the prompt and see the results. And as expected, we have the result, and we can call this as many times as we want. For example, let's say we have a need to send two inputs First one for grade 6, next one for grade 8, and here are the two prompts. In the example that I used, we are setting the input value as a string value, which is fixed. But the partial function also allows you to set the value of a variable equal to a function. And this function gets called at runtime when you invoke the format function. This can be very helpful when the input variable values are dynamic. To show you the working of functions with partials, let's think of an example wherein the grade needs to be passed as a random number between 1 and 10. So first we'll start by creating a utility function. This utility function generates a random number between 1 and 10. Next, we will create the partial prompt. I'll just copy from here, paste it, and this time we'll say grade equal to the name of the function or reference to the function. And at this time, we have our partial prompt ready to be used. Let's call it a couple of times. Prompt equal to partial prompt dot format, and we pass it the subject equal to science, and let's print the prompt. Run it, and here it said grade 10. Let's try it one more time. This time it should show a different number, hopefully. Yep, grade 9. So the idea is that at runtime, the partial prompt is calling the function to generate the value for the placeholder. In this lesson, you learned about the LangChain prompt template class. With prompt template class, you can define templates with placeholders that represents the input variables. To generate the actual prompt, you need to call the format method with the values for all the input variables. You can create a partial prompt template by using the partial method that requires you to pass values for some of the input variables. Happy learning, and I'll see you in the next lesson.